Welcome everybody to the 49th annual Limgrave Open. The greens are looking a little rough today. The weather's looking a little cloudy. We've got our man lining up his shot here, and he swings. And that's a birdie. This is like the fourth time I've tried to record this audio. iMovie. I use iMovie to make these because we're professionals over here, and iMovie has crashed no less than 8 times, I think, while I've been trying to put this video together. To be fair, I'm asking iMovie to do some pretty complicated stuff, like put audio clips under video clips, so I know that's tough to do. But we've got a low-level invader here. That's what this video is about. My other invader character that I've featured on this channel a couple of times is pretty honest, you know, like level 80 now. We got some spells. We got the Dark Moon Greatsword. This guy I wanted to do low-level invasions, and I wanted to see how many, like, kind of dirty tricks I could stuff onto this build. You know, make somebody who could really cause a ruckus and have some fun at level 25. That's the level that we're at right now. So I settled on an arcane build because I thought status effects at low level would be helpful in handling, you know, situations where there's like 2 or 3 people fighting me at once. But I've been having a blast. I mean, level 25 might be my new favorite level to invade at, because, you know, sometimes you see stuff like this. You invade in the Crystal Tunnel, and you invade 2 guys. One of them's named Slayer, one of them's named Death. Neither of them are wearing shirts. I mean, look at these guys. It's iconic. This was a this was a fun battle, showcasing a couple of weapons that I've been using a ton on this build. The first one is the Forked Greatsword. It's a greatsword that does bleed buildup. That's it. That's the whole tweet. And the Serpent Bow. The Serpent Bow itself has poison buildup, and if you buy the Serpent Arrows for it, it does even more. So those two have kind of been my go-tos for these invasions, and I've been seeing a decent amount of success with them. I really like the look of them, especially the Forked Greatsword. You can farm for it at the Road's End Catacomb. There's an imp who, you know, comes at you like 2 feet from the Grace checkpoint, so pretty easy to farm for it. Probably only took me like 30 minutes or so to get it. And the nice thing about an arcane build is that the more you pump that arcane stat, the higher your discovery goes, so it'll be easier to farm for specific weapons if you want to get them. But this Forked Greatsword, with Bloody Slash, it's a great way to deal with people who just rush you at the spawn point, because you get a couple of seconds of immunity, and so it's always nice to have a weapon that has something on it where it's like you can just let it off if, you know, a bunch of people are trying to surround you as soon as you spawn into the level. Look at this blue. Just getting grabbed. That was like 2 seconds after he spawned. What are you doing, man? He's having a hard time. I've noticed that, at least at this level, when you have any kind of status effects on your build, whether it's bleed or poison, those are the 2 that I've been mainly working with, people tend to start playing a little sloppier, or maybe that's not the right word, more conservative, definitely. If somebody gets poison on them, they tend to back off a little bit and you know, get a little bit scared, even though the poison in this game is not a huge deal. It's not really a killer, but people will start playing differently if they're poisoned, and that can be helpful to you as an invader sometimes, especially with something like the Serpent Bow, which can cause that poison buildup pretty quick. You also invade in a lot of different places when you're level 25. When you get up to like the meta level, you know, we're talking like 125 to 130 or whatever it is now, you get a lot of, you know, you're just invading people right in front of the boss wall. You know, you're invading in Farum Azula right before the boss. You're invading right before people go fight Godfrey. And that can be fun sometimes, but I mean, at level 25, it's all over the place. It's Stormvale, it's Limgrave tunnels, it's Rhea Lucaria Crystal Tunnel, sometimes random Caelid invasions, places in Altus. It's all over the place, and I've found that I almost never have to wait for an invasion. I think that the number of people who are doing co-op kind of drops off at certain points, at certain levels. At meta, it's still pretty popular, but in between 25 and meta level, there's just certain gaps where it's really hard to get any invasions at all. Like level 70 was weird for me. I just wasn't finding anything there. But here, you know, I almost never get that annoying little message that's like, you know, attempting to invade a world. It's usually just straight away. This this invasion was terrifying. Look how dark it is. I can't see anything. I don't know where these guys are. I don't know what I'm doing. I think I get stuck behind like a rock or something around here. It's just bad news. Look at this. No lights. 2 guys. 2 knives. I didn't stand a chance. Here's a pretty fun one. So you'll notice there's one co-opper down there and the host, and then they are summoning a second guy. He pops up right there. I'm up on this ledge just goofing. I'm just trying to poison these guys. Not really paying attention to my surroundings at all. Just trying to hit this guy with these serpent arrows. But you'll notice the host down there, you can see his little light, it disappears. If I had noticed that, I probably would have jumped down and tried to make something happen, because looking at this clip, it's pretty obvious he's trying to go around the back and backstab me while I'm occupied with his buddies, which he ends up doing. And it's a pretty great move. Look at that. I deserve that. That's fair. Thankfully, he didn't knock me down into those guys, so we actually had a pretty good fight here. I knew I had to try and take care of this quick because his buddies were probably rushing up to get him. But that bleed proc there, usually when that hits, people will back off, which can help you with people who are playing just like super aggressive. And after this, I get the riposte here, and then he disconnects on me. Can't believe it. No honor. I actually don't see that very often. It's very rare that you get disconnected on in these fights and these invasions, because most of the time, like, you're not going to win, you know, if you're not paying attention. But it's a lot easier for hosts to win, I think, in Elden Ring in invasions. So most of the time, people don't get as salty as they did kind of back in the days of like Dark Souls 3 invasions and things like that. These are always fun ones here in the Limgrave tunnels, because the Limgrave tunnel is sort of FromSoft trying to let beginning players know that, hey, the most direct route is sometimes not the route that will take you where you want to go. So there's lots of different kind of nooks and crannies in here where people could be hiding, lots of different places where, you know, you might have a fight go down. I put a couple of incantations on this build that I thought would be helpful. We have Dragon Claw, which I need to drink the Physic for because I don't have the levels for it. And then we also have Swarm of Flies. So I did end up doing Vare's quest line and go into the Mogwin Palace. Those two can really help in kind of tight areas like this. You know, if you're in a hallway with a bunch of different people, those can both create some distance a little bit. For what I'm wearing for this build, I kind of settled on the face mask because I thought it looked cool. I have, it's really hard to see it, but I have Mohg's symbol on my forehead for this character, so I wanted to show that off if it's even visible at all to people. And then I ended up getting the Depraved Perfumer's chest piece. You can't see it in this clip, but you can see it in some other clips here. I liked the lore behind the perfumers, and it was kind of a little rabbit hole that I fell down. I might make a little video about them later. But it seems like they were, you know, in the capital, and they were healers. They would spend a lot of their time with kind of the underclasses, specifically like the Misbegotten and the Omen. And those are two groups of characters in this game and kind of the narrative that sort of represent what came before the Erd Tree and the possibility of change, right? That the Erd Tree and the Golden Order might not be eternal, and that is something that the Golden Order did not want around them, hence the persecution. But then the Depraved Perfumers, on their chest piece you can see, I think it's two snakes in like a double helix pattern who are winding up the trunk of a tree, and the item description says that it's a curse on the Erd Tree. So I like to think the Depraved Perfumers were, people who were working in the capital who kind of started to see the flaws and the cracks and the hypocrisy in the Golden Order, and they decided to kind of curse their past and move on alone with their lives. So my character is sort of a guy like that. We can see another Dragon Claw here. It gives you some hyper armor, but not really as much as I would like. I tend to get knocked out of it a lot unless the conditions are right, but it can work pretty well, if you get somebody sort of in a corner. Here we have an invasion in Stormvale. It's me, the host, and the host has two co-opers with them. And I think this is a good example of how, what do you do if it's you versus three people? Obviously, you don't want to fight them one-on-one. Obviously, the co-opers are probably going to be a much higher level than you, and they're going to be scaled down, so they're not going to be doing as much damage as they normally would. They're not going to have as much health as they normally would, just because the host is so low level. But you still don't want to just 1v3 these guys. That's usually not the right move. Try to catch them around the corner here. Doesn't exactly work. But you'll notice this guy with the two greatswords, with Radahn's greatswords, eventually jumps over the ledge here. I'm not really sure why he does that, but that gives me an opportunity, because now it's not a 1v3 anymore. For a couple of seconds, once he jumps off of this ledge here, you can turn it into a 1v1, or even a 2v1, because we've got the grafted scion down here, which can really help kind of break up big groups. So he runs into this, little alcove back here, and I've got literally, I think, 1 second where it's just me and him. But that's enough to take care of him, and now the tide has turned with this battle, right? We've got the dog, we've got the grafted scion, and we're able then to just make it a 1v1 with the host going up the elevator there. So that's something that you can do if you find yourself getting into situations where people are just ganking you, you can't get people off you, it's a 1v3. Just try and find opportunities to break the group up, and even if it's just for 1 second, sometimes depending on your build, the weapons you have, the Ash of War that you've got, that can be enough to kind of start chipping away at their defenses a little bit. Every time that you kill one of the co-opers, you get some flasks back, and that can really help you too if you're sort of running low on those. That was another one of the priorities that I had early on for this build, was just getting as many of those golden seeds as I can, because there's nothing worse than running out of juice mid-fight. Me and this guy here, we're pretty evenly matched. I mean, when it's greatsword against greatsword, that's kind of what you get. But having Stormcaller on any kind of halberd or a spear can be really effective, especially if you're getting followed by multiple people, or if you are sort of in a 1v1 that's not really going anywhere. Just try and switch it up a little bit. This is another clip of me getting exactly what I deserve for not paying attention and for just like trying to take shots at these guys from up high. That made me laugh pretty hard, and I think that should be your goal when you're doing invasions, is to just try and have fun. You don't always have to win. Sometimes you can lose in a funny way, and that's good enough. You get the clip, that's all you need. Also at level 25, I found more than one, honest to God, Taunter's Tongue players who were not summoning co-op, they weren't summoning blues, This guy, Shooter McGavin, I fought him a couple of times in one session, and it was a great fight. You know, you tend to see less of that as the levels get higher, but this was a fun fight because he was also doing switch-ups. You know, I went from the that Eocade sword, which I wish I liked more. I can't really land the L2s on it. They're pretty tough, and so I've eventually just sort of switched over to the dual knives. But he was using a katana, he was using a curved greatsword at one point. So, you know, me and him just kind of going back and forth trying to feel out the other side's weaknesses. The dual knives are fun in situations like this, you know, when you can really kind of lay on the bleed effect, but it's really tough if it's anything more than just a 1v1. I don't usually tend to bring out the dual knives unless I'm sure that it's just me and one other person. Here's another one. I tried to put sword dance on a halberd because I thought it would be funny, but it wasn't. It wasn't funny. I just got stomped. Not a great decision, I would say. So once again we see this guy just trying to like rush the spawn point when you've got those couple of seconds of immunity. So if you have something, you know, big that you can just let off in that 1 or 2 seconds where you're invincible after spawning into the level, it can help out a lot. I've done that with Gavel of Haima a few times. That can be funny if people are just trying to swarm you as soon as you spawn in. So trying to have something like that on every build can be pretty helpful. You'll see here the bleed procced, but he didn't lose any health, and I think that's just because of like a latency or a connection issue. So if you are running any kind of bleed setup or any kind of like status effect build, that's a risk that you might run into. You know, the internet might just tell you no if you're swiping at somebody. But this invasion ends in probably my favorite way that an invasion could end. I thought it was going to be like a long, drawn-out fight with this guy. He's running away from me. We're both out of juice, and he just gets sniped. All right, there you go. It's a thing of beauty.